What is up, everyone? I am Kimmi Chex, joined with my two best friends. I can't believe it. I feel like it's been so long since we've all been together. My guys, Marcas Grant and Adam Rank. How are you?
Wonderful.
We're here.
I'm so excited.
It's good to see you, Kimmi Chex. You're a superstar now. The last time we saw Kimmi Chex, she was, she's Kimmi Chex. And now all of a sudden it's Kimmi Chex, superstar. You have to say that now when we say your name. So you've been crushing it. So it's good to see you.
I missed you guys so much. When you see our three faces, that normally means we are getting closer and closer to the regular season, which means fantasy football is back. Now, the 2021 NFL schedule just got released. So, of course, we got to talk about it, right? This has been coined the biggest NFL season ever. That's not hyperbole. It really is the biggest season ever because we added a 17th week game to the regular season. Tons of fantasy implications there. But you two have had a chance to look over the full NFL schedule and pick out the biggest fantasy winners, losers, and so much more. So, Marcus, I want to kick this thing off with you. Please give us your favorite league winner based on his overall 2021 schedule.
I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor, and I promise you that Michael F. Florio didn't slip me $5 to say that here on this video. I really do believe that Jonathan Taylor is poised to have a fantastic year. And I know that's not really a news flash. I mean, this is a guy that was going in the top half of the first round in a lot of drafts anyway. But I think when you look at that schedule, it gives you even more reason to try and get after him early in your draft. He's got 7 games against teams that were in the top 8 of most fantasy points allowed to running backs last year. 6 of those games are within his own division. He took over that Indianapolis backfield late in the season last year, and I expect he's going to be a full workhorse in 2021. So in case you weren't somehow on the Jonathan Taylor bandwagon, this should fully get you on board for this year.
He's a rookie no more. He's ready to come back with a vengeance. I love that JTT pick. Also, shout out to Michael F. Fantasy Florio. I'm sure he loves that pick. No, Rank, you've got a league winner, not based on overall schedule, but based on the fantasy playoffs. But before I ask you for that answer, I know you want to reminisce a little bit and look back to last season's fantasy championship round and see who those top players were.
Yeah, you know what? I'm sorry if I'm ruining the gimmick here to talk about the absurdity of looking at schedules, because I'm sure that last year at this time we were looking at this and being like, hey, everybody, make sure you have Samaje Perine on your roster as well as Jeff Wilson Jr. and A.J. Dillon. Like, this is just a brief reminder that it's a long NFL season, and there are a lot of things that go wrong. By the way, I had number 2 through 5. I had number 8. I had all of those guys on one team because I had Christian McCaffrey and I had to scoop up all these running backs. So I had all those randos and I had to find the right combination, and it was disconcerting. So when I look at the playoff schedule, I look at who the San Francisco 49ers are playing, and I'm taking every 49er I can possibly get my hands on. Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle maybe instead of Travis Kelce this year. And I love Trey Sermon. I think that the 49ers went out there on purpose, used the 3rd round draft pick on him, and they're going to give him some work. I mean, similar to what happened with Jeff Wilson Jr. last year, who I also like. I'll take them all. Everybody. Like, is Wendell Tyler available? Roger Craig? Give me them. Ricky Waters? I'm into this. I want to have all these 49ers playing the Titans and the Texans. The Texans. There is an opportunity. I can film our Week 17 show of Fantasy Live. Just make sure I don't shave my beard and be like, hey, start your 49ers this week. Back to you. It's time for the hype train. Here's some rhymes. Start a 49er. Trey Sermon is the guy that you have to start. Already, I'm saying it. Clip this off. I don't need to show up in Week 17.
You guys, we made it like 3 or 4 whole minutes before Rank had a humble brag. If you look at that top 10 fantasy running back board from the last season, I love how he just says like, oh yeah, and by the way, I had all of these guys on one team. Whatever.
And
it's a
David
Rank humble
Montgomery
brag. That's
too.
why I love you. Okay, we get it. You're good at this whole fantasy thing. That's why you got a job. All right, let's move on to a star player that you're worried about with a tough 2021 NFL schedule. Marcus, I'm going to hit you on this one because a lot of times when people are in their fantasy draft, you go for the star power, the big names, and you scoop them up, not maybe realizing that just because they've got a big name, that isn't necessarily going to carry you to a fantasy championship. So Marcus, who are you a bit worried about?
Well, at first, I want to say that, I did a mock draft with a different organization, but I did it before the schedule was released. And I took this player sort of midway through the draft. And now I don't know if I should be upset with the people who did this mock draft before the schedule release, or if I should be upset with the league for putting the schedule together the way they did, because I took Russell Wilson in this mock draft. And now I look at a schedule and I'm like, yeah. Look, last year, we were all hashtag let Russ cook, right? And then midway through the season, things weren't going very well. And by the end of the year, it was hashtag let Russ get DoorDash. So, we'll see if that's going to happen again this year. But the schedule is not very forgiving, right? When you look at the games in the division, first of all, I mean, he's got 2 games against the Niners, 2 against the Rams. That's not very fun. The Cardinals really were no picnic either. I mean, look at these highlights here that we're showing right now. So that's not going to be easy. Then they've got the Steelers, the Saints, the Packers, the Washington football team. It's not really very exciting for a guy that kind of struggled halfway through the year last year. I know over the last couple of seasons, people have been sort of fading Russ in a lot of their fantasy drafts, sort of waiting for the fall off to come, and it hadn't completely come. But I do think this might be another year where people are maybe like, I'm cool on Russ, and they'll go another direction when they're looking for their quarterback.
Did you not mention the Russell Wilson revenge game that's in there?
Wait, there's a revenge game?
Yeah, they got the Bears in like week 16.
We're calling that a revenge game now?
Is that not a revenge game? Like there was nobody more excited about Russell Wilson coming to the Bears than me. But like week 16, I can't even figure out the weeks anymore because like that extra game, I almost use an adjective I shouldn't have. But because of that extra game, what is it? 15-6. Yeah. So they got the Bears in the fantasy playoffs too. So that's tough. Sorry, I derailed this whole thing.
Be happy about Justin Fields. Okay. You're fine.
I'm excited about Justin Fields.
Okay. Listen, then let Russ cook. But like Marcus said, maybe he's back to DoorDash Russ because of that very tough 2021 schedule. Now rank a star player who you're worried about with a tough fantasy playoff schedule. I know, we're really forecasting into the future, but as a reminder, the fantasy playoffs will now be weeks 16 and 17. So who's a guy who's going to have a tough battle ahead?
Well, yeah, this is something similar to what happened to Marcus, where I was already starting to look at the late round quarterback I was going to target in most of my drafts. And I felt pretty comfortable going with Matthew Stafford, getting an opportunity to play with Sean McVay in Los Angeles. I thought, okay, this could actually be really nice. So I started looking at okay, I'm just going to count on drafting Cooper Kupp and then drafting Matthew Stafford late, and I'll run that stack. And then you see in week 17, they got the Baltimore Ravens. And I know things can change throughout the course of the season. So this is my plan here. And Joe, this is my plan. What are we doing? Joe Burrow? Why are we showing Burrow? Oh, it's the Ravens. Sorry, I got thrown off. In any event, here's what we do. I'm still taking Matthew Stafford, but I'm also going to take Trey Lance just in case he's the starter in week 17, just to have him ready to go, because I think that he could be this year's Jalen Hurts, of a guy who you're like, I'm going to start Jalen Hurts in the fantasy playoffs going against the Cowboys. So I'll still take Stafford and just figure out what I'm going to do in week 17 when that presents itself. I don't want to think that far.
I did take Trey Lance, though, at the end of that mock draft I was talking about. So I guess I sort of salvaged myself there.
There you go.
Aw, good job,
sure
guys.
You
I'm
did.
really proud of you.
I did. With my last pick, I took Trey Lance.
Oh, that's very convenient. Oh, yeah, after Rank said it, I totally did that. What do you mean?
I could just sit back and watch the two of you go back and forth, and I just don't even have to say anything. So are you guys done? Are you guys done now? Are we good?
That's how they produce us on NFL now. They're like, you guys just talk for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back.
God, see, I love our reunions. This is the energy I've missed these last few months. All right, so we're really forecasting and looking very, very far ahead. But let's look a little bit ahead to what's going to come first. I'm talking about week 1. Now, I'm going to tee this question up to the both of you. A fantasy player who absolutely is going to ball out first game of the season. Marcus, you kick us off.
I'm going to go with Nuke Hopkins. I mean, I know that might be low-hanging fruit, but again, it's just as tasty as the regular fruit, and you don't have to reach as high to get it. He's got the Tennessee Titans, who were pretty awful when it came to stopping wide receivers last year. They gave up the 3rd most fantasy points per game to the position. 14 different receivers had at least 7 catches in a game against the Titans. That's pretty good. 7 different receivers had more than 100 yards against Tennessee. I expect that we're going to see Nuke probably do both in that first week. And, look, they got a lot of wide receivers that they got to spread the ball around to. But Kyler Murray's pretty good at getting it to number 10 whenever he needs a big play to be made. And I expect they're going to come out of the gate throwing the ball to Nuke quite a bit. And, when you draft him, you can expect pretty much a good season, but especially a good week 1.
Okay, NFL Jumpman DeAndre Hopkins, a few really fun revenge games for him going up the Houston Texans later in the season as well. All right, so DeAndre Hopkins was Marcus's choice. Rank, who is yours? Week 1 baller.
I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts going up against the Atlanta Falcons. And you know what? Ooh. I might have gotten burned by him in the fan. He was fine against the Cowboys. If they wouldn't have, if they would have reviewed that fumble again. I love this matchup because last year we always wanted to start our guys against the Atlanta Falcons, and then they went out there and made their cornerbacks or their defensive backs worse by getting rid of their only good player, Keanu Neal. It's like if you had the 4 horsemen and you're like, we're going to get rid of Ric Flair, but still call him the 4. You're like, it's different. It's completely, it's something that's not the same. And so I look at this and I think that Jalen Hurts is going to be my starting quarterback in week 1. I do know that I was talking about Matthew Stafford, but now I know because my friends watch these shows. So they'll draft Matthew Stafford in the 4th round, so I won't get him. So I should shut up about Jalen Hurts because now he's going to go in the 5th round and I'm going to have to sit there and wear that. But I love this matchup. I think this is a pretty good opportunity for him. I think he's a really good quarterback. I thought that he equated himself. I remember in the draft when people are like, are the Eagles looking at a quarterback? I'm like, what did you see last year that made you think that Jalen Hurts is not the guy? Like, he's absolutely the guy that you thought he was going to be. Like, what is happening? I love that player.
Shout out to Jalen Hurts, kind of giving us head scratchers in fantasy football last season because we were like, I don't know, maybe don't start this guy. And then he had a few dominant games where he went and balled out. But Rank says he's going to completely ball out week 1 against the Atlanta Falcons. Now, y'all, there are some big name comeback players who should be healthy and ready to suit up and go week 1. Those guys being Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley. Their very first game, Saquon facing off against the Denver Broncos, CMC going against the New York Jets. Which one of these guys is going to have a bigger comeback moment? Marcus?
Christian McCaffrey. I don't really see much that's different with the Panthers offense this year versus like any of the past couple of years. I know McCaffrey was hurt, played only 3 games, but when he played, he averaged 26 touches. His touchdown rate was very ridiculous. You see the 30 points that he averaged in the games that he played this past year, or played last year. And I know they have a new quarterback in Sam Darnold, who I love and I'm rooting for, but I'm not sold that he's exponentially better than Teddy Bridgewater, so I don't really see a whole lot of change in this Panther offense. So as long as McCaffrey is there and healthy, he's going to get the rock a ton in week 1 and beyond.
Are we going to ignore the fact that week 1 is a Sam Darnold revenge game against the New York Jets? Like, I love it. Like, Christian McCaffrey is going to score 4 swing touchdowns against this team. I'm ready for it. By the way, if you look at the Panthers schedule, they have a really good opportunity of going 3-0. I think they could even start the season 4-0. I don't have the Panthers making the playoffs. Maybe when I start studying this a little bit more, I could change my mind. But I look at this team, I think that if you're trying to identify those under the radar teams that could make a leap this season, I think the Panthers are one that you should really look at. They got Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator. I think that Terrace, who they're bringing in from LSU, I thought that was such a great pick for them. I think this team is kind of loaded, and I think Sam Darnold takes a step up. So I'm going to be all in on Christian McCaffrey once more.
All right, so both of you guys doubling down. Christian McCaffrey is going to have the bigger week 1 comeback. But I want to give Saquon Barkley a little bit of hype and ask you guys how excited you are for his return. Are we going to see a healthy Saquon Barkley that is a top 3 fantasy running back again?
I hope so. If he's healthy, the opportunity is going to be there. Although the schedule, both he and McCaffrey have not great schedules, at least if you're basing it on last year's FPA, which I know can sort of be a dangerous thing, but it's kind of all we have to go on right now. So if you base it on that, the schedule's not great for either of them, but volume is sort of king here, and both guys are really excellent football players. They're running backs who sort of matter. So I do think big things are coming for him.
Yeah, I think the Giants are another one of those teams that could take the leap this season. I thought that bringing in Kenny Golladay was huge for them. Getting Kadarius Toney was also a good move for them. So I think this offense is a lot better, and it's really coming down to how good Danny Dimes can be. If he makes that third-year leap, well, this is one that would raise everybody's value on that offense, including Saquon Barkley. So I'm good to make speculative ads with Saquon, and I think a lot of people will avoid him because of his injury history. But to me, it's very similar to what Dalvin Cook had to play through for the first couple of years. You know, he had that injury concerns. We don't know about him. And then finally, he's been putting it all together. The last couple of years, he's been relatively healthy. I think Saquon Barkley can do something similar.
All right. We're getting closer and closer to fantasy draft season, and it'll be interesting to see if Saquon really does fall quite far or if people know that he's going to be the healthy Saquon and go out and dominate yet again. All right, guys, this is rapid fire. I'm going to ask you one thing, Marcus, and then rank another. All right, so it's going to be Marcus, rank, rapid fire. First one, fantasy quarterback matchup that you're most excited to watch in 2021. Marcus.
I'm going with some young guys. I'm going to go week 4. The Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence go to Cincinnati to take on Joe Burrow. And we saw this in college a couple years ago in a national championship game. Burrow ends up getting the better of Clemson in that one. But I think this is going to be a rematch. It's going to be interesting. They're two teams that are sort of on the rise, trying to build something there with guys they think can be franchise quarterbacks. So I think this is going to be really, really interesting when they hit the field against each other.
Ooh, I like that pick. Young guys, maybe Tim Tebow, an older guy, will be on the field for that one for Jacksonville.
Oh, would you stop
Who knows? Okay, I just had to say it. I just had to get a little ding in there. All right, rank, rapid fire, your turn. 2021 fantasy rookie debut you're most excited about.
I'm going to go with Devonta Smith playing for the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Atlanta Falcons, mostly because I didn't want to do any extra research. I just wanted to just mail in the same points I was making about Jalen Hurts, and this worked out perfectly for me. This is going to be a situation where he goes out there, he's going to catch two touchdowns against the Falcons, and then every hot take artist out there is going to be like, this is this year's Justin Jefferson. This is going to be, they're going to make all these proclamations that he's going to score 20 touchdowns. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to trade him, and I'm going to get a bevy of players for him. Because I know how this will work out. But I'm just going to go. I'm going to enjoy week 1. I'm going to enjoy Devonta Smith. I'm going to enjoy Jalen Hurts. That's going to be my stack. You can't do that in DFS because that's what everybody's going to do. But I think for your at-home league, it's going to be a fun little way to start the season.
A lot of hype around Devonta Smith and what he's going to be able to do up in Philadelphia. All right, Marcus, back to you. An under-the-radar fantasy hero that's going to emerge from the ashes mid-season.
I'm going to take the guy that was my favorite running back to watch in this rookie draft class, and that's Javonte Williams. And look, I admit, when he got drafted by the Broncos at first, my feelings were kind of hurt because I didn't want him to go somewhere where he's going to have to share opportunities. But the more I've sat and thought about this, and I admit that Adam Rank sort of pushed me in this direction a little bit, the more I'm starting to kind of get excited about this. Look, I think we'll start to see by week 6, right? Week 6, the Broncos have the Raiders. Their run defense has not been very great. I see that as being the game where Javonte Williams breaks out and really starts to push Gordon, I won't say completely to the background, but look, I don't think Melvin Gordon's going to be there beyond this season. And so I think that's the moment when the Broncos look around and say, well, hey, maybe we start getting the young guys some more opportunities. We start to phase out Melvin Gordon bit by bit. So I think, if you draft this sort of in the mid to late rounds, don't expect something in the first month of the season. You may be disappointed. But by about week 6, I think we're going to start to see Javonte Williams really show up.
And I think last year, I would say this too, just to throw this point in. I think last year it was important to note that Aaron Rodgers really did start to rely on A.J. Dillon. So I think we could see Aaron Rodgers rely on Javonte towards the end of the season. What?
Excuse me? Are they on the
What's
same
happening?
team? Are they on the same team?
Oh, is that trade not happened yet? My mistake.
He's
Sorry.
wish casting right now.
Sorry. Forget what I said.
No, come on. Leave Aaron Rodgers alone, you little bear, you. All right, Rank, back to you. Rapid fire. Fantasy expectations for none other than TB12 in his revenge game versus the Patriots in week 4.
I love this. I'm going to say 28.9 fantasy points in your boring standard scoring. I think for anybody who plays in a league with fun scoring, with 6 points for passing touchdowns, for bonuses, for yards, it's going to be a huge game. And I don't think it's necessarily going to be Tom Brady wanting to drive this. I think Tom will say the right things. The tweet that he put out was hilarious. I also think that his teammates want this for him. I think Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and obviously Gronk, these are the guys who are going to want to make this happen, and they're going to make it manifest. And I think the only thing that keeps it from being a complete runaway is that Leonard Fournette will actually steal a couple of touchdowns and but still be pretty good for Tom Brady.
I think the biggest question I have is, if Tom Brady loses, is he going to shake Bill Belichick's hand? I don't know. We will see. Is that bad to say? I don't know. I just don't like the shade that he throws to quarterbacks when he loses the games. But whatever, he probably won't do that for Bill. But that's a very exciting matchup. I know. Come on. It's like the most unassuming guy. That's a guy whose hand you're not going to shake. Like, really, Nick Foles? Come on, Tom Brady.
It's also because Eli Manning is retired, because Eli would probably get snubbed too.
Oh, that's true. Okay, good point. Thank you for that perspective. All right, I want to look ahead a little bit in the schedule, because there are a few bye weeks this season that are going to be a head scratcher for anyone playing fantasy football. Specifically, week 7. This is a week that have the most teams on a bye, and it's going to be very, very tough for us fantasy managers if we have shares of these players. Some teams on the bye: Dallas Cowboys, Minnesota Vikings, Buffalo Bills, Pittsburgh Steelers, Jacksonville Jaguars, and last but not least, the Los Angeles Chargers. Those are a lot of guys on the offensive side of the ball who are going to be out for week 7. So, way too early, week 7 replacement player. Marcus, start us off.
Well, quarterback's going to be, I think, the big hit that everybody takes that week when you talk about, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, being 3 big-time quarterbacks that are not going to be available. There's Kirk Cousins and Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, too. I guess we should mention Ben Roethlisberger just to complete the set now. So I'm going to say Tua Tagovailoa is going to be a guy that you're going to want off the waiver wire that week if he is available. He's got the Atlanta Falcons, which is just an excellent matchup pretty much for any quarterback. We've been picking on the Falcons for a couple of years when their defense comes to town. And I think Tua's going to take a step forward. I think for the most part, he'll still be a QB2 this year, but I do expect bigger things. I mean, they went out and got him some help by, signing Will Fuller in free agency. They drafted Jalen Waddle to put in a very crowded wide receiver room. Mike Gesicki is still there, and maybe he starts running a little bit more. So I think that if you're looking for a quarterback that week, Tua should be a pretty good way to go.
Ooh, but is Tua going to be the quarterback? Like, what's all this preseason jargon around? I don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be.
Come on.
This is stuff that we need to talk about in May because, that's what people want to talk about.
Okay, well, if he is the starter, which he's going to be, a very good replacement for week 7. Rank, are you going to stick with the quarterback or go with another player here?
No, because I do believe the quarterback position is probably going to be the most impacted here. So I'm going to go with Justin Fields. And I don't like the matchup, but I want to use my platform right now to just gloat about Justin Fields and ask the Green Bay Packer fans, how do you feel about Blake Bortles being your starting quarterback? I hope you enjoyed 32 years of Hall of Fame quarterback play, because the tables have now turned. I was going to try to use the Michael Scott quote, but I actually said it correctly, which is backwards. By the way, Justin Fields doesn't smile ever. So I'm not worried about this at all, okay? He's just going to go out there and ball out. And I think the biggest question that we're going to have is, when do we see him as the starter? There's a lot of people who believe it could be week 1. There's a lot of people who believe it could be during the bye week. But I will say, if you look at their schedule, they open up with the Rams, Bengals, and Browns. Realistically, and I'm saying this as a Bears fan, there's a possibility they start off 1-2. Losing to the Rams, losing to the Browns, winning at home in the Andy Dalton revenge game. That week 4 game against the Detroit Lions would actually be a pretty good opportunity to get Justin Fields out there. And by the way, let's not ever forget, the Detroit Lions had an opportunity to draft Justin Fields, okay? And I don't care if Penny Sewell goes on to be a Hall of Famer. If Justin Fields is the quarterback we think he's going to be, you're going to be paying for this for years. So if you look at their run, they got the Lions, Vegas, the Packers. Those are 3 good games that you would want to start him in. Tampa Bay is the matchup. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It's actually going to be very terrible, because we talked about Tom Brady returning to play the Patriots. Let's not forget what the Bears did to Tom Brady last year with the, is it still 4th down and all that stuff. Nick Foles beat him again. Tom Brady's going to put up 90 points on the Bears. I know, listen, I'm a realistic fan, but I think that Justin Fields will have to be in that game throwing the ball as well, trying to keep up with Tom Brady. It could be a situation where he throws for like 345 yards, runs for a score in a game the Bears get blown out. So that's actually probably not a bad start for him.
I love you trying to
okay.
inflict more pain. I love you trying to inflict more pain on Lions fans. Like, you can't hurt Lions fans anymore. Like, they've endured so much pain throughout their lifetimes. Like, your threat of Justin Fields over Penei Sewell does nothing to them. They laugh in the face of pain now.
I hope on Thanksgiving, because can I say that the Bears play on Thanksgiving? Is the schedule released?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's released.
I don't know. I don't know if it's been leaked
Yeah,
or whatever. I don't know. I hope Khalil Mack just swim moves Penei Sewell and just sacks Jared Goff repeatedly, and Fields goes out there and throws 6 touchdowns on him. Just as a reminder, like, this is what the rest of my life in the NFL is going to be about, is making you guys regret passing over me. At least the Vikings wanted to draft him and we had to jump him. But, it is what it is. That was a dumb way to finish that. I don't know what to say.
Spoken like a true Bears fan. This is Adam Rank, everyone. Welcome to the Adam Rank Show. A lot of hype surrounding Justin Fields. Obviously, in Dynasty, you should go and pick him up, but also a good quarterback to stash for someone who could start later on in the season and hopefully get you to a fantasy championship. Guys, this is fun. Let's reunite and do these a little bit more often. Always a pleasure to see you, Marcus and Adam Rank. Now, y'all, be sure to check out your team's full schedule over at NFL.com. Those schedules just being released for the biggest NFL season ever. Also, for more fantasy goodness to get you set for your drafts, be sure to download the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast at NFL.com/podcast or your favorite podcast provider. I'm Kimmi Chex. Guy in the middle is Marcas Grant. The bald guy is Adam Rank. It's been fun. See you next time, guys.